I'm a 28-year-old man named Alex, and my story revolves around a complicated relationship with a woman named Amanda. For over a year, we navigated the intricate dynamics of what felt like a serious romantic connection. Yet Amanda insisted we were just friends. We dated, shared intimate moments, and lived together in an apartment that bore the signs of our life together. However, there was a disconnect. Amanda's insistence on our platonic status left me feeling frustrated and confused. I loved Amanda deeply. I thought she was the one for me. But as time went on, I began to feel like I was in a perpetual limbo. I yearned for commitment, for the security of knowing that we were truly together. It stung every time I attempted to define our relationship, only to have her brush it off with a casual remark that we were just friends. Each time I heard it, it chipped away at my self-esteem, making me question if I was worth more to her than that. One night, I decided to let loose. A group of friends and I went to a bar to unwind. And that's where I met Lisa. She was strikingly confident, exuding a sense of freedom and boldness that I found intoxicating. Lisa made her intentions clear. She was interested in a no-strings-attached fling. In that moment, a voice in the back of my mind whispered that I was free to explore this. Given Amanda's persistent claims of our platonic status, after a few drinks and engaging conversation, I found myself inviting Lisa back to the apartment I shared with Amanda. It was a decision fueled by spontaneity and a sense of liberation from the constraints I felt in my relationship. As we cuddled on the bed, I felt an exhilarating rush of adrenaline. It was a moment of escape from my internal conflict about what my relationship with Amanda truly was. Then the unthinkable happened. Amanda walked in. The shock on her face was evident, and the air was thick with tension. It felt like time froze as I processed the look of betrayal and anger in her eyes. I scrambled for an explanation, but words failed me. What could I say? I thought we were just friends. Amanda's reaction was immediate. She stormed out, leaving me alone with Lisa, who seemed to realize the gravity of the situation. I sat there, feeling the weight of my decisions crashing down on me. What had I done? I didn't mean to hurt Amanda, but a part of me felt justified. After all, she had made it clear that our relationship was not official. In the days that followed, I tried to reach out to Amanda, but she gave me the silent treatment. I felt hollow, desperately hoping for a chance to explain myself and mend things. I sent texts, left messages, and finally showed up at the apartment, only to be met with cold indifference. My heart ached, and I found myself reflecting on the choices I had made. After a week of silence, Amanda finally agreed to talk. When we met, it was awkward and filled with unspoken resentment. I apologized profusely, trying to express how much she meant to me. To my surprise, she eventually relented, agreeing to be my official girlfriend. I thought we had turned a corner, but the shadow of my actions lingered over us. Now, 6 months later, I find myself grappling with the fallout from that night. Despite the initial reconciliation, I still feel a tension in our relationship. My friends, while supportive, often remind me that my actions were unacceptable, that I crossed a line. They argue that no matter what Amanda said, I should have respected the emotional bond we shared. I can't shake the feeling that they might be right, but in my mind, I justified my actions based on her words. As I sit here reflecting on the past year and the mess of emotions surrounding it, I wonder if I truly am the asshole. My intention was never to hurt Amanda. I simply felt lost in a relationship that lacked clarity. Was it wrong to seek companionship and affection elsewhere when I was repeatedly told we weren't in a committed relationship? Or was I simply using that as an excuse to cover up my own insecurities? The complexity of our relationship lingers in my thoughts, challenging me to confront the reality of love, trust, and the consequences of our choices. My journey is one of growth, reflection, and understanding the importance of honest communication in any relationship. I can't help but wonder if I'll ever fully recover from the choices we've made or if our love can endure the shadows of the past.
I'm a 20-year-old woman named Mia, and my story unfolds around an incident with my boyfriend, Jake, who is 27. Our relationship, while generally loving and supportive, took a dark turn recently, and I'm grappling with the aftermath of what happened. It all started on a typical Sunday morning. I had planned to study for my upcoming midterms at a cozy coffee shop with a few friends, including my roommate and best friend, Emma. We settled in for a solid few hours of studying, fueled by caffeine and the faint hum of background chatter. I was there from around 8 a.m. until noon, fully immersed in my work, surrounded by the scent of freshly brewed coffee and the comforting buzz of other students doing the same. When I finally wrapped up and headed over to Jake's place, I was in a good mood, still buzzing from the coffee and the productive morning. But that changed the moment I walked through the door. Jake greeted me with a frown, saying I smelled like coffee. I laughed it off at first, thinking he was joking, but it quickly became clear he wasn't. He was serious. I really can't stand the smell, he said, his tone more irritated than playful. You need to change. At that point, I had already planned to spend the night, so I had clothes with me. But I didn't want to change immediately. I was comfortable and just wanted to unwind after a long study session. Instead of brushing it off, I snapped back, feeling cornered by his demands. Things escalated quickly. I raised my voice, frustrated that he was making a big deal out of something so trivial. I told him to stop and let me be, threatening to leave if he didn't ease up. That's when he lost it. In a moment that felt surreal, he grabbed me by the shoulders and shoved me into the bathroom. The door clicked shut, and I was left standing there, stunned. I didn't even have time to process what was happening before I heard the lock turn. I banged on the door, demanding to be let out. But Jake remained silent. I felt a rush of panic. Was he really going to keep me in here? As the minutes ticked by, I tried to reason with him through the door, but he was unyielding. I spent the first 20 minutes attempting to calm myself, convincing myself it was just a silly fight. Surely he would let me out soon. But as the clock continued to tick, the feeling of claustrophobia crept in. My head started to throb from the stress. After about 45 minutes of futile attempts to get out, I resigned myself to the fact that I was locked in. I turned on the shower, hoping that maybe the sound of running water would soothe me. I was wrapped in a towel, sitting on the floor of the tub, feeling utterly defeated. I just wanted to get out and be with Jake. But he was being stubborn. Hours passed, and I couldn't take it anymore. I was sobbing at this point, feeling desperate and trapped. I had my phone with me, and in a moment of sheer panic, I dialed 911. I didn't want to get him in trouble, I just wanted to escape. I hoped that if the police came, he would have to let me out. When the police arrived, I heard the commotion outside. My heart raced with a mix of fear and relief. Jake finally unlocked the door, and I stumbled out, wrapped in my towel, feeling a wave of emotions crash over me. The officers talked to us separately, asking questions and taking notes. I felt embarrassed, ashamed, and overwhelmed. This was not how I wanted my relationship to be defined. Once they left, I thought maybe this would be a wake-up call for Jake. But instead, he exploded in anger. He called me an idiot for calling the police, insisting I had put us both in a terrible situation. I felt cornered again. I tried to explain my perspective, that I was scared and just wanted out of the bathroom. But he didn't want to hear it. As the days passed, the tension in our apartment was palpable. He refused to look at me. And when he did, it was with disdain. I felt trapped in my own home, wondering if I had made a huge mistake by staying with him. My heart ached because, despite everything, I loved him. But love shouldn't feel like this. I spent those days reflecting on everything that had happened. I thought about how I had ignored small red flags in our relationship and how I had brushed off moments that felt uncomfortable. It was clear that our dynamic had shifted, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. Would I be the asshole for breaking up with him? My friends urged me to take a step back and consider my mental well-being. They reminded me that I deserved to feel safe and respected in my relationship. But the thought of ending things with Jake felt monumental. After everything we had been through, how could I just walk away? Yet, every time I thought about that night, I felt a knot in my stomach. I didn't want to live in fear of what might happen next. I didn't want to feel like I had to tiptoe around someone I loved. As I pondered the future, I realized that I had to prioritize my own happiness and safety. I had to ask myself, could I ever trust him again? Would I be able to forgive him for what happened? I knew I had a decision to make, one that could change the course of my life forever. I had to choose between the fear of being alone and the fear of continuing down a path that felt increasingly toxic. Ultimately, I understood that love should never make me feel trapped or afraid. As I stood in the middle of our living room, I took a deep breath and felt the weight of my decision looming closer. I would have to confront the reality of my relationship with Jake, and I could only hope that I would find the strength to choose what was best for me.
I'm a 55-year-old man named Tom, and my story is one filled with complexities, emotions, and tough decisions. My journey began 4.5 years ago when my marriage to my ex-wife, Lisa, ended in divorce. The relationship had become toxic, marked by constant fights and her emotional abuse. Ultimately, she left me for a coworker, and while it stung at the time, I was determined to move on and create a healthier life for myself and our son. Sean, who is now 15, has always been the light of my life. Despite the turbulent waters between Lisa and me, I worked hard to maintain a solid relationship with him. Over the years, we've established a good co-parenting dynamic, especially as Lisa's initial anger toward me has faded, replaced by a more civil approach. Yet, there remained an underlying tension: Lisa's inability to accept my new relationship with my girlfriend, Clara. Clara is 40, and we've been together for 3 wonderful years. She is kind, supportive, and has brought joy back into my life. However, from the moment I introduced her to my family, I could tell that Lisa was less than pleased. She often made passive-aggressive comments about Clara, and it was clear that she wanted to undermine our relationship at every turn. It was as if Lisa couldn't stand the idea of me being happy after our split, especially since she struggled to find a stable relationship of her own. One of the biggest issues has been Sean's relationship with Clara. He has never warmed up to her, largely because his mother would disparage her whenever possible. It became a cycle. Sean would listen to his mother, who would influence him against Clara, and Sean would, in turn, withdraw from her. I tried talking to Sean about it, but he seemed to mirror his mother's sentiments more often than not. This past week, I was out of town for work, and Clara decided to use the time to work on some repairs and decorating around the house. I had already informed Lisa and Sean that I wouldn't be around. Out of the blue, Lisa called me, stating that she had met someone new and wanted to know if Sean could stay at my place for the weekend while she spent time with this guy. I immediately felt a wave of frustration. I knew that Sean was perfectly capable of staying home alone. He's a teenager now, after all, and he'd been doing well managing his time by himself. When I conveyed this to Lisa, she pushed back, insisting that he shouldn't be left alone and that he was scared of being home by himself. I understood her concern, but I also recognized that she was using this as a manipulation tactic to get what she wanted. "Tom," she said, "you're choosing your girlfriend over our son." I didn't feel that was the case at all. I explained to her that Clara shouldn't have to babysit Sean, especially when their relationship was fraught with tension and hostility. Clara had tried in the past to connect with them, but it always felt one-sided. Now, it seemed that ship had sailed, and I wasn't going to put Clara in a position where she felt uncomfortable. The discussion spiraled into heated territory, and Lisa eventually said she would drop Sean off at my place regardless of my feelings. I felt frustrated and trapped. I didn't want to let my son down, but I also needed to stand my ground for Clara's sake. I reminded Lisa that this wasn't our weekend for him to come over anyway. Over the years, I had tried my best to be a supportive co-parent, but this felt different. I was no longer willing to let Lisa dictate my life or the dynamics of my home. Clara had become an integral part of my life, and I wanted to prioritize her well-being as well. I couldn't allow my son to manipulate the situation to pit me against Clara simply because of his mother's unresolved feelings. In the aftermath, I was left feeling conflicted. Lisa had painted me as the villain, and Sean had started to distance himself, likely influenced by his mother's words. I loved my son dearly, but I refused to let him or Lisa bully me into a situation that made me uncomfortable. As the days passed, I wrestled with my choices. Was I wrong for wanting to prioritize my relationship with Clara? Was I being unreasonable by not wanting to disrupt my life for Lisa's whims? I found myself pondering these questions repeatedly, each time grappling with the implications of my decisions. My friends and family tried to offer their perspectives, but ultimately, I knew this was a decision I had to navigate on my own. The love I felt for Clara and the commitment we had built over the years was meaningful. And I didn't want to throw it away because of my ex-wife's inability to let go. After much reflection, I came to understand that sometimes we must make hard choices to protect the relationships that truly matter. I would stand by Clara, and I would strive to help Sean understand that the choices we make can have far-reaching effects. The balance of family dynamics may be tricky, but I was determined to navigate this path as best as I could, keeping love and respect at the forefront of my decisions.